my name is Carrie Taminia, and if you're new to my work, I am a love and dating coach and an EFT tapping expert. And this video is a special gift from me to you. It's part of a larger work, a larger course, but I'm going to give you the quick and dirty version, everything that you need to know right now to take the next step in manifesting your person, your soulmate, your partner, your next love, your next relationship, your next up-leveled relationship. There is a lot of power in the information that I'm going to give you today, and I hope that you stick with me through the video and start to put these things into action right now. Again, everything about this information is for you to have something to do. I want you to take a next tangible step in creating the reality that you want to bring into your experience from the perspective of your love life. This little quick course, I suppose, is what it is really an opportunity for you to re-engage in what sort of has become infamous in, the love and dating, manifesting realm, and that's making your list. I find that in this field there are one of two views about the list. And the list, what I'm referring to is there are coaches out there in the world who one of the primary things that they ask you to do when wanting to manifest a partner is they ask you to make a list of the things that you're looking for. Writing sort of this proverbial shopping list for the universe as far as who you want to bring into your experience and who you're looking to attract. And then on the other hand, on the other end of the spectrum, there are groups of coaches that kind of like poo-poo the list, and they're like, you don't need a list, the universe doesn't need your list, the list doesn't actually do anything, it doesn't actually help, and it's become sort of this trite exercise. And what I want to invite you to do is I want to invite you to make a list. I think there's deep value in my experience in this field. There is deep value in making a list and writing down what you are trying to manifest, whether it be a partner or a lover or marriage or something entirely different. But I want to give you a perspective and give you a new way to do it that is different from essentially creating a wish list or a shopping list or a grocery list for the thing that you're trying to create. So I'm going to give you specific instructions to sort of supercharge your list making, because I want you to use the tool, but I want you to use it better. I want you to be empowered to put something into action that's not that isn't passive. That's not something that you're going to write in a notebook and then put it away until the next time you feel compelled to make another list, and then you find the list that you originally made and nothing has happened. I want this to be part of a bigger action step process, because that really is how we can move things. So let's talk first about the value in making a list, because that's the part of this process that seems to be kind of hotly debated on the interwebs. It's about whether you should or shouldn't even make a list in the first place. And the truth is that, again, there is deep value in the process of writing things down, of naming what you're calling in, of saying what you want. And the truth is that the list that you're making is not really for the universe. It's not for God. It isn't for directing what is coming to you, because the universe and God and spirit, they don't need your list. Your list isn't changing the cosmos, so to speak. Your list is for you. And that's the first powerful perspective shift that you can make, is that your list in this situation or any manifesting situation is 100% for you. And it's for you in a couple of different ways. The first way it's for you is that it is a form of powerful, tangible clarity. And there is deep power in being clear about what you actually want. And being clear about what you actually want, asking yourself, what do I want to create? How specific can I be? What am I manifesting? Forces us to engage in the process of naming and immersing ourselves in what we're actually creating. Because most of us, if we're honest, we move through the world never really being specific about what it is that we're looking for, never really being specific about what it is that we want. And we do that for a couple of different reasons. We do it because if we're specific about what we want, if we name it, it creates tension. Naming what you want from a place of not having it creates natural tension. And that tension is on purpose. It is there for a reason. It's there to either compel you to move toward what you want, or the other options you have is to disengage from your connection to what you want to create so that you don't feel the tension. And that's where most of us live. Most of us live in that limbo of moving away from the discomfort, moving away from the tension, not being clear, not being specific. Because if we really truly engaged, if we named it and we were specific and we wrote it down and we made it tangible and it became an unquestionable standard in our lives as we moved forward, then we would either be forced to make a next move, to enact that standard or that boundary or those things in our lives. We would have to do something to bring ourselves closer to getting that or creating that, or we would have to admit that we didn't really want it, or that we don't think we're worth it, or we don't think we deserve it. Because every single time that you get clear about your intentions and you get clear about what you want and what you're trying to create, and then you make a move that doesn't align with that doesn't move you in that direction, every time you say, I don't want this, and then you accept it, every time you say, I do want this, and you accept something different, you are saying, both inwardly and outwardly, that you don't really want what you said you wanted. Or there is a deep underlying belief that you don't deserve it or can't have it or aren't worth it. And so that tension is going to push you in either one of those directions. And that is why most of us are never really clear about what it is that we're looking for, that we don't get specific. If we never tangibly name what we want, if we never tangibly get clear about what we're manifesting or what we're calling in, then we're not responsible for it. And that can be a very comfortable place to be. If we don't get clear about what we're creating, then we're never responsible for the parts of ourselves that aren't aligned with it, or aren't ready for it, or have those limiting beliefs that are keeping us from it. And there is comfort there. There is comfort in what's familiar, no matter how negative it may seem from the outside. The value in making a list comes from that. It also comes from having a tangible, constant reminder about what you're wanting and what you're creating. Because I cannot tell you how easy it is, how often I come into contact with a person or a woman in my practice who says that she wants X, Y, and Z, but is accepting something entirely different. Who says she wants these qualities or these traits or these values, and then when she's sitting across the table from a guy who is particularly handsome, or she starts to get desperate about being alone, or she starts to second guess whether she's enough or pretty enough or good enough or deserves love or, it is really easy to settle. It's really easy to compromise what we said that we wanted in the moment. And so the list that you're creating is for you. It's for you to engage in that tension. It's for you to align yourself with what you're creating, to call out all the parts of you that are not on board for whatever reason, and to act as a reminder for you as you move through the dating world for what you really are looking for. Because again, the universe doesn't need your shopping list. What it needs for you to do is to grow and evolve and learn through the vehicle of relationships. And that's what's happening. And so there is, again, deep value in making a list. And so for all of the subset of coaches that kind of prescribe it as kind of a trite exercise. And for those that kind of say that there is no worth and value in making a list, I say something different. I say that there is deep value, but only in these specific ways, only because it's for you. I'm going to give you several tips for making your list. Most likely, many of you have done this before. Many of you have already made some kind of a list sometime of the things that you want in a partner, or of the relationship that you want to attract into your experience. I want you to take those experiences of making a list and all the lists that you've made before, and I want you to kind of get rid of them, chuck them out, because this experience is going to be intentionally different for you. I'm going to give you some guidelines, some tips, some rules, if you will, about how to make your next list, the list to end all lists, so to speak. And the first one is be specific. I want you to be specific. Let me explain. There are plenty of experts in the world that sort of support the idea of being very vague, very unattached when we're creating the lists of things that we want, or we're trying to manifest through this kind of a tool. And the reason that they do that is because it can be so easy for us as human beings to get really caught up, to get really stuck on the how. Figuring out, instead of feeling into the energy, instead of bringing the energy into our experience, it's very easy for people to kind of get stuck in the, well, how is this going to be possible? Or this needs to look this exact way, or it doesn't make sense to me, and therefore I can't get on board with it. I don't want you to be specific because I want you to get hung up in the details. And I don't want you to be specific in that I want you to get hung up on the vehicle of how it comes to you, how your next love or your perfect love or your aligned love comes into your experience. I don't want you to do that. But I do want you to be specific in what's important to you. I do want you to be clear. Because the more clear you are, remember, there's power in clarity. The more clear that you are, the more you're going to be able to align yourself with what it is that you're creating. And when we're not specific, when we intentionally choose to be vague and leave things open-ended, I often find that there's an underlying issue there of worth and value. And we are afraid of really creating what we think that we want because of what it would require or say about us, what it would require of us to actually have it. And that shows up in sort of this creative tension that I really kind of in the back of my head or in my gut want X, Y, and Z, but I don't think that I can actually have those things, or I'm not good enough to have that, or it starts to trigger those issues of worth and what we are allowed or not allowed to have in our experience. I also find that people get really hung up on, if I'm very specific and I'm very clear about what I want, then I'm more likely to be disappointed, or I believe that I have to compromise, or I don't believe that I can actually have all of these things. It's too much. It's too selfish. I'm asking too many things. It'll never happen. This unicorn doesn't exist. And let me tell you, your unicorn exists. The unicorn exists. Yes, are you specific? Yes, may you have high standards? Of course. But you are a unicorn in and of yourself, sweet thing. You're allowed to call in another unicorn. But you're not going to find a unicorn until you're clear on what that looks like for you. Now, here's the caveat. You want to be careful not to be hung up on the how, the vehicle details. For example, there's a lot of shame in the world about how you meet your partner. There are people that, they really, really, really want to meet somebody organically. They want to be in the grocery store on a Sunday night and have a guy in the produce section spontaneously ask them for their number because they're just so taken and smitten with their, cosmic energy. There are people that hold a lot of shame around online dating and app-based dating. So much so that, they'll often ask people that they do meet, like, what would our story be? What are we going to tell people? How are we going to tell people we met? And I just want to release you from that shame. Apps and websites, they're just vehicles. They are just tools to use in this process. There is no shame in using them appropriately. There's no problem with that, because the truth is that if you are on an app or on a website that there are likely other people like you on the app or the website. There is someone out there that might be there, and while online dating and app-based dating comes with its own list of issues from time to time, and its own specific problems, there is not any shame in using that tool, because again, who you attract into your experience starts with you and what you're aligned with. It has nothing to do with what vehicle you use, whether you're in a bar or you're on Tinder. It makes zero difference. So drop the shame around how you're meeting the person. Drop the shame around the vehicle. I would suggest that you not even include that in your list whatsoever. I also tell people to be cautious about the package that it shows up in. There is no problem with being specific, but there is a problem when you're using your standards. And here is where it comes all the way back to you again, and your own issues and your own point of attraction. Is that it is one thing to be specific about what you're looking for, and it is another thing entirely to use specific requirements to avoid actually having to engage in intimacy or vulnerability or a potential relationship. Because it is one thing if you prefer men who are over 6 feet tall, per se. But if every time you meet a man who's over 6 feet tall, you change that requirement, there might be a deeper issue there. So you're using your need for specifics to just be careful and just be mindful of watching for those specifics that are too stuck on the vehicle, that are too stuck on how it shows up. Because look, that person that you're manifesting exists. He is already out there, or she is already out there. But if he's 6'3" instead of 6'4", is that really a problem? So you want to be clear on what is actually a value for me, and is it possible that I am using any of these values or attributes that I'm really hung up on to avoid in any way being vulnerable or being in a relationship, because it's unsafe, because I don't think I deserve it, because I don't want to be hurt, because I don't want to be disappointed, etc., etc., etc. So yes, I invite you to be specific, with the caveat that remember your point of attraction is about you. Number 2, in your list, be careful. Again, this kind of fits with number 1. Just be careful and be mindful and be cautious about focusing just on attributes. I don't want your list to look like a shopping list. I don't want it to look like you've gone to a laboratory and they're going to create a physical being for you that matches the list of things that you have chosen. I want you to focus on feelings. How do you want to feel in your next relationship? How do you want the interaction with your next partner to feel to you? What values do you hold about intimate relationships that you want to be true? I want you to ask the intangible questions just as much as you're asking the tangible questions, because again, the tendency is to focus on the things, on the physical, on what we see, on the person, on the how. And I want you to focus on, how do I want to show up in a partnered interaction that's aligned with who I am and with my values? How do I want to feel in the intimate, vulnerable interaction that I'm about to create? Because the feeling of your next relationship is much more important than the vehicle of your next relationship. The feeling of your next relationship is the energy that you're going to use to create it in the first place, not what it looks like. So focus on feelings. How do you want to feel in your next relationship? The third tip that I have for your list is write your list in the present tense. So if you're focusing on, I will feel supported in my career path, in my next relationship, I want you to change that language to, I am supported in my career path, in my next relationship, because there is energy in the words that you use. There is energy in the language that you're using to write this list. And I want you to write it as if it already is. I don't want you to write it in the future tense. Do not use the word will at all. You're writing it in the present tense, as if it is already here, as if you have already manifested it. And it might be a little bit difficult to do that, but you're enacting your faith. You're enacting your faith that that thing that you're manifesting is already present for you, that it is already on its way. So your entire list should be in the present tense. And on that note, I want you to leave out any of the not statements. Do not write what you do not want. Do not say, I don't want this, or I want this and this, but not this. Do not put any not statements or statements about what you do not want in your list whatsoever, because the universe does not work that way. The universe does not work in this, but not this. It works in focus. It works in energy. It works in intention. And so whatever it is that you're focusing on, whatever you're investing your energy into, is what the universe is going to bring to you in some ways. And so by even engaging in those statements of what you do not want, you are putting energy and intention into what you do not want. And I want you to bring into your experience what you do want. So leave those out. They are not necessary. Force yourself to write your list not only in the present tense, but in the lens of, what do I want? What am I specifically calling in? You don't need to say what you are not calling in. That doesn't help you. The next tip that I have for writing the list that ends all lists is to be honest. This is not the time to edit yourself. And I often talk to clients about this element of manifesting, and this element of working through their own issues and calling in experiences that are aligned with their energy, is that the universe is responding to who and what you actually are. And the list should be an expression of that. It should be an extension of your already existent energy and your being. Yes, is it going to help you shift into a new space? Of course, absolutely. But what it's not going to do is make you something that you're not. And so there is no value in being dishonest or in editing yourself, because, and where I see this come up a lot is I see women edit themselves because, again, of those worth and value issues, because they really want something specific, but they're not willing to put it down. They're not willing to put it into tangible form. They're not willing to focus on it because it requires too much of them, or because they don't think they're actually worth it, or they actually deserve it, because they aren't sure if they can really have it. And all of those issues are connected to deeper issues of self-worth, and they may not be ready to deal with those yet. So now is not the time to edit. I want you in this list, if you're writing this list, I want you to be honest, be for real. You don't have to show this to anybody per se. It's just between you and the universe. It's between you and God. You don't need to make yourself more appropriate or more acceptable. This next tip is important. It's important because it represents a pattern that we as human beings can fall into very, very easily. And that pattern is using our list, using our point of attraction or a manifestation to knock our current reality, our current partner, our last relationship, or some past relationship, where we use our manifesting as a vehicle to criticize what's going on for us right now, or what has happened for us in the past. And again, just like leaving out the not want statements, I want you to leave out this energy. This energy doesn't serve you. It doesn't support your manifestation. It doesn't help you create what you're wanting to create. In fact, it gets in the way. It hinders that flow. It hinders the energy. So do not use your new practice in manifestation or your new list to criticize or knock your current reality. And let me give you an example. I had a client not that long ago who was writing the list, and we were working in her existing relationship. She was married for many, many years, and feeling a little bit dissatisfied with her current interaction with her husband. And I am not always an advocate that you need to switch relationships in order to find satisfaction. I'm very much an advocate of your relationships being a reflection of yourself and where you actually are. And so our goal became, in our work together, readjusting her point of showing up and her interaction with her husband so that she could change how the interaction felt to her. And the first time that she went through this exercise of really naming what she wanted in her current relationship, how she wanted it to feel and how she wanted it to look and how she wanted to show up in her interaction with her husband, she kind of peppered throughout her list and throughout her description these really seemingly harmless criticisms of her current relationship. So she might say, instead of feeling like I'm a second thought, I would like to feel like I'm a priority for Tom. We'll say his name was Tom. Instead of Tom going golfing every weekend, Tom will or is going to, or instead of going golfing every weekend, Tom spends time with me every Sunday or makes me a priority in his spare time. And I had to really, really encourage her to remove those clarifying statements instead of going golfing every weekend. Did she have a problem that Tom went golfing every weekend? Essentially, no. Golfing wasn't the issue. It was that she did not feel prioritized in their interaction. And so I had her edit her list to remove those, again, seemingly harmless criticisms. They are important examples of how our brains can kick up these tail-ender beliefs about our current or past experience, and that energy is not serving your future manifestation. It does not matter what has happened before. That was then, this is now, is the line I like to use with my clients most often. Don't include that energy on your list. You are writing your list in the present tense as if it is already true, and it is divorced from everything that has happened until now. Because what you manifest next is not actually dependent on what you've manifested before. The relationships and experiences you're about to bring into your life are not dependent on or limited by the relationships and experiences you've brought into your life up until this point. Thank God. The last tip that I have about making your list to end all lists is that it should leave you feeling inspired. Your list should leave you feeling excited to connect with new people. It should leave you feeling excited to move forward in some way. It should leave you feeling inspired. It should not be a negative criticizing low energy experience. I want you to feel good. The better you feel about your list, the more effective you're going to be at manifesting what is on it. And so if your list does not leave you feeling inspired, I want you to go back and I want you to do it again. I want you to edit it until you are inspired. And what happens typically is one of two things I see when people are not inspired by the list that they're making. Either they weren't really honest about what they were wanting, or they edited themselves in some way to make their list more attainable or acceptable, or to make more practical sense. And they sort of put these very human parameters, adult parameters, on their list. And so it is not inspiring, it's just logical. Logic is not always inspiring. The universe, while very clear, does not require your logic to make things happen. So if you go back to your list and you recognize that, I haven't truly been honest, or I really wasn't clear or specific about these things because I don't see how they can happen, or I don't think that I can have them all, then I want you to recreate your list. I want you to change it. I want you to do it again so that you're really force yourself to be deeply honest with what you're actually wanting to call in. You should feel excited about it when you're finished. The second thing that I see happen is that the list is actually triggering deeper issues. And if that's the case, then you need to employ either tools that you have in your tool belt or the help of a professional to help you kind of dig through what those limiting beliefs are. For these people, oftentimes writing the list does not help them feel inspired because it's triggering a belief about, again, self-worth, what they deserve, what they can have, or it's triggering feelings or emotions about past relationships that have not truly been cleared and released. There is residue there that's in the way of you feeling inspired about what you want to bring in next because you haven't really moved on from what's already happened. So remember, while your next move is not limited by your previous moves, your next relationship is not limited by your previous relationships, the truth is that you as a human being are experiencing the relationships and interactions that you're experiencing for a reason. And therefore, you are going to be called to grow and evolve and learn from those interactions. And if you have not done that, then this list may feel triggering to you, more triggering than inspiring. And it's just a call. It's not a bad thing. Doesn't mean you can't have what you want next. It's just a call for you to really, really, really start to engage in that process of growth and evolution and figure out what it was that you were being shown through that previous interaction. Or maybe you need to grieve the previous interaction. You haven't allowed yourself that emotional space. Once you have written your list, once you have used these 7 tips to write your list, oftentimes for many coaches, this is where the process ends. You know, you write your list, you set it under the light of the full moon, and then you never look at it again. I want you to, again, create this active, engaging tool that you can use to engage in the ongoing practice of manifestation. I don't want you to put your list away and never look at it again. I want you to look at it. I want you to actively engage in it. So once you've created the list, the next thing I want you to do is I want you to go through all of those elements that you put on your list, and I want you to give each one of them a rating. I want you to give each one of those elements a rating on a scale of 0 to 10. And you're going to ask yourself 2 questions. The first one is, how true is this now? That may not be applicable to every element on your list. If you have something on your list that is entirely dependent on another person's presence, then it may not be true at all, and that's okay right now. But there are going to be elements on your list, especially in the feeling-based parts, where it will be possible for you to have those feelings or engage in those feelings in other areas of your life. And in those cases, you're going to ask yourself, how true is this now in my life? So if you put on your list something like, I want to feel supported in my career, I want you to ask yourself, how true is this now in my life without this relationship? On a scale of 0 to 10. 0 being it's not true at all, 10 being it's 100% true. The second question that you can use is, how possible does this feel? On a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being not possible at all, 10 being 100% possible. And in that case, or in both of these cases, I want you to ask yourself why. And this sort of becomes this whole entire practice of, why does it feel this way? Why does it feel possible or not possible? And especially in those questions when it feels not possible or it feels untrue in your current life, it's going to start to show you areas of your life that need your attention. Because if you want to feel supported in your career, in your next relationship, but you don't feel supported in your career right now, that's a lot of pressure you're putting on one hypothetical individual to make you feel something that you could be bringing the energy of into your life right now. Or if none of your past experiences have allowed you to feel supported in your career, in your relationship, and you don't actually hold the belief that it's possible to call that in, then that's an indicator that that's something you need to work on, because the disbelief of it being possible is going to interfere with the manifestation. Does that make sense? So you're rating each of these statements on a scale of 0 to 10. How true is this now, and how possible does it feel? And you're looking for patterns. You're looking for areas of your experience that feel like or are indicating that you need to do some work. Because the process of manifesting your next best relationship, your better love, is going to require you to show up. You must show up for the process, and this is part of how you do it. This is part of how you show up for the process, is where do I hold beliefs that these things are not possible for me, or I do not deserve these things, and what are those beliefs? And then how do I clear them or adjust them or release them? And how true are these things in my life right now? And am I being responsible to myself for creating these values in my current experience. Because creating those values, creating that energy, and creating those feelings in your current experience without the need for a partner is going to align you with that energy, and you will begin to attract people into your experience that are aligned with the energy of what you're trying to create. And those two processes are going to clear out any parts of you that are misaligned with what you're wanting, that are misaligned with what you're manifesting now. The next part, or the next step, and I've put all these in a PDF for you so you can see them in writing as well. The next part is people don't like it. This is not the most popular step of the process. The next part is I want you to read your list to somebody else. I want you to sit down with 1 to 3 people individually who are important in your life, who know you well, who you trust. And I want you to read your list to them. I want you to do this for 2 reasons. First of all, making what you're calling into your experience public is a level of accountability that will help you. Because when you find yourself across the table from the guy who's really hot, but does not meet the criteria that you have set for yourself, and you feel tempted to see him again anyway, or to sleep with him anyway, because you just want to feel like you've been chosen, or it's triggered all of your issues, having those 3 people, having those people who know the path that you're on and the goals that you have set can help hold you accountable, because girl, it is not always easy. And the second reason is because if you choose people who are very familiar with you, if you choose people who know you very well, then they can help you with that previous process, with showing up in that ongoing process of, have you included anything on that list that really does speak to a limiting belief? Are you not seeing yourself clearly? Have you edited yourself in a way that's very obvious to a third party who knows you very well, but that you may not see? And so having that objective input about where you're headed and what you're creating can be deeply, deeply valuable. So I want you to read your list to somebody else. I want you to share it with somebody. I always recommend to my clients that they do that in sort of a face-to-face interaction, because I think there's value in that, and I think it's easier to have an organic conversation about where it's going and where you're headed when you do that, versus kind of sending it off in an email or sending it off in a text message or a picture, because that can feel a little bit impersonal. But do what you can. And again, people don't like this step. This is not something that people are a fan of doing. We kind of want to do it by ourselves in our journal, and then again kind of put it away and never look at it. And I want you to begin to set up structure to hold yourself accountable for what you are creating. This list writing exercise fits into a bigger dynamic. It fits into a larger personal work that you need to engage in to call in your next better love. But the final 2 steps that I'm going to give you here today are enough to sort of close the circle on this practice. And I want to remind you that this is a practice, that manifesting is not a write a list and put it away and never do it again or look at it again. This is something that I want you to continually engage in, continually edit as you learn more about yourself and about the people that you're bringing into your experience. As you heal your past relationships, what you're calling in will naturally change. In addition to holding yourself deeply accountable for what you're creating and being willing to engage in that process of identifying your limiting beliefs, identifying the worth-based beliefs that may be keeping you from creating a relationship that really is what you want, the next part of that is to really be intentional and active about the dating process. And for me in my practice, that happens in 2 vehicles. The first vehicle that it happens through is the vehicle of actually dating other people. Because I love the women who are out there who want to meet their soulmate and are not leaving their houses. Unless you're expecting your next love to break into your apartment, you're going to have to get yourself out there in some way. And again, like I mentioned earlier, divorce yourself from the shame of the vehicle, whether it's an app, whether it's online, whether it's a bar, whether it's a party, whether it's in person, whether it's being set up by a friend. All of those are potential vehicles for meeting your next person. And you're doing yourself a disservice by avoiding it. So I want to encourage you to actively date, but I want you to actively date within the parameters of what you're manifesting. Because having a tangible list, so to speak, will help you get not only really clear about what you're looking for, but be really clear about what is not aligned with that. And the truth is that if you're dating with consciousness and intention, there is no need or value in entertaining anything that is not aligned with what you're creating. And the moment that you know in your gut that it's not aligned with what you're creating, you can politely decline. You can politely remove yourself from a situation. And doing that behavior of allowing dating to be a sifter, allowing it to act as a colander and straining out the things that are not aligned, the sooner that you can get closer to what you're actually creating. So again, if you're wanting to bring in your next relationship, you have to put yourself in the position of engaging with potential relationships. That is the point of dating. And the second part is to commit really tangibly to creating and aligning with the energy that you want to bring in to your next relationship. I encourage women all of the time to figure out what it is that they want and how they want to feel in their next relationship. And then ask themselves and be very intentional and committed about bringing those feelings and those experiences into your life all by yourself. Because it will help you do the work of finding out where you're not aligned. What may be holding you back? What limiting beliefs are there? Where have you not embodied the energy that you're trying to create in your partnership? Because the quicker that you can align yourself and embody the energy that you're creating in your partnership, the quicker that you can shift who you're attracting into your experience. And so I want you to not only date other people, because that's the purpose of dating, but I want you to date yourself. I want you to know yourself like you want someone else to know you. I want you to feel fulfilled and supported and satisfied and loved and however else you want to feel in your next partnership, all by yourself. Because the universe and your next partner will not do something for you that you are unwilling to try to do for yourself. Now, I do not believe that you need to be perfect at loving yourself in order to find a relationship or to be loved by another person. And we will always, hopefully, meet and engage with people who are better at seeing our value and our amazingness and our lovable qualities than we are at ourselves, because we're really, really hard on ourselves. But engaging in the process of learning to love yourself better, engaging in the process of aligning yourself with the energies that you want to bring into your partnership, means that your standards change. It means your point of attraction changes. It means that you are not shackling your next interaction with the responsibility of fulfilling you, because that's not what your interactions are designed to do. That's not what they're for. And so committing to the process of knowing yourself and helping yourself feel all of those things that you want your partnership to help you feel is, again, you're just aligning energies. You are putting yourself on the same level of attracting people that are on that same plane. And it's a really, really good way to trigger any of those lingering limiting beliefs or lingering emotions that are not serving what you're creating anyway. So yes, date yourself. Please learn to love yourself. You might not be perfect at it by the time you find your perfect partnership, but again, engaging in the process of learning how is going to help you infinitely and immensely. Remember again that this is an ongoing process, that this is a learning process. You're going to edit, you're going to adjust, and it's going to bring into your awareness work that needs to be done for you energetically and emotionally. I highly recommend seeking out support to help you do that. That is a service that I offer. I'm not going to pitch you at the end of this workshop hard, but I will just say that I have a website full of resources. You can see it here at the bottom. And feel free to visit that and reach out to me for support in this process if you feel like it's something that could serve you well. Otherwise, you have a lot of information to kind of hit the ground running. It's a great time always a great time to kind of reevaluate your point of attraction when it comes to your relationships. And remember, this is not just for your next relationship or your new relationship if you're single or in a dating situation, but if you're in an existing relationship that is not feeling like it's fulfilling for you, then this can also be a really valuable exercise to do from the perspective of and through the lens of your current relationship and your hopes and dreams for how that partnership will grow and evolve and change over time. Thank you so much for joining me. I wish you all the best in your search, and I hope to connect with some of you for some deeper level support sometime soon.